Hello guys, welcome back. In this video, let us learn about one more interesting service based on our need. Nowadays, most of the companies are facing a major issue that is customers data leak. What is that? Customers data leak. So in news, we generally see that from this company, these many customers data is leaked. From these companies, these many customers data is leaked. So like that, majorly nowadays we are facing that customer leak data issue due to unable to protect high security to the data, due to unable to provide high security to our data or some simple security mistake, this happens, right? Yeah. So for a company working with large quantities of data, it becomes very difficult to save that information securely, right? Yeah. So to secure our data, first, we need to identify these unencrypted credit card numbers or social security numbers that are in plain text, right? Yeah. So first we need to identify those secret details are. If we try to identify that data manually, then it obviously take a lot of time for small amount of data. If we want to do this task in large company, then it becomes a very large task. Might it takes sometimes days, years, sometimes it takes days, months, as well as years also. So to identify these type of information, if we are a technical person, then we use obviously machine learning based automated scripts to do this. Actually, in AWS, where do we store this data? In S3. So in order to identify this type of information, we need to write ML script. So like that of script automation we perform to get that. So currently I'm not a technical person and even I do not have that much time to learn ML, and write the script that identify particularly my credit card details which is present in this. And even if I do so, if I really created an automated script and I try to identify this information which is present in this S3 bucket, then it also makes me some money. Even that cost me very lot. So in order to reduce that cost of identifying and better solution to identify my data, AWS comes up with a best solution that is with a service. That service name is Mace. So, in order to perform identification of my company's client personal information as well as health information by using any one of the AWS service, we need a service, right? Yeah. So that can able to identify my personal identifiable sensitive information. You can remember like identifying sensitive information of my data. So for that, we have a service that is AWS Maze. So by using Maze, we can able to identify sensitive data present in S3 bucket, and it produces in the form of findings. So after identifying sensitive data present in my S3 bucket or S3 buckets, it can produce as the findings. By using that findings, we can able to see whatever the sensitive data which is present in our S3 bucket, right? Yeah. So now let's have a question that, so in order to do this, in order to identify sensitive data present in S3 bucket, do I need to provide any underlying infrastructure or Do I need to create a machine learning automation script, or do I need to create any pattern matchings algorithms? So those all things do I need to manage for identifying the sensitive data present in S3 bucket? The answer for this is no. We don't even need to manage the underlying infrastructure for this maze. And we don't even need to write machine learning machine learning code for identifying the personal sensitive data present in S3 bucket. So it's a fully managed service. Which type of service? ML service. That is machine learning, machine learning service. And we can use our own patterns, or we can choose the existing pattern. So we can even say it as fully managed ML and pattern matching service, since it is able to identifying the patterns, right? Yes. So pattern matching service. This AWS Macie is a fully managed machine learning and platform and pattern matching service. Okay. Now Maze can automatically identify this personal data present in S3 bucket and findings, provide a detailed list of findings in order to identify them. Okay. What kind of sensitive data? What kind of, you are specifying it can able to identify sensitive data, right? Yes. Now let's have a question. What kind of sensitive data does this maze can able to identify in S3 bucket set? This maze can able to identify two types of sensitive data. Those are, this sensitive data may be two types. That is personal identifiable information or personal sensitive information. So these two types, PII and PSI, it can able to identify these two type of sensitive information present in your S3 bucket. Let's say this maze identified some threads under the sensitive data that this maze identified. So now let's have a question. If I identified threads, then what I do? I obviously perform some actions. Now the question is, can this maze able to perform actions instead of me, behalf of me? Yes. This maze can even able to perform actions by using some services like lambda or step function. So whenever Maze discovers these threads in data, Maze can additionally able to take actions by using services such as lambda and AWS step function. Okay. By default, actually Maze is in disabled state. If we want, we can enable it. By default, it is this AWS Maze is in disabled state. We can even able to enable it whenever we require. Now, in order to take actions by using these services, or in order to identify sensitive data present in S3 bucket, this may require permissions, right? Yes. Now, in order to get those permissions and perform actions behalf of us, what we do? We can create a service link role. What is that? We can provide those permissions by creating a service link role for it to get permissions required to operate on behalf of us. So when you do maze creation, the service link role you need to create at that time. While enabling maze, it will ask you to create this service link role as well. Don't worry, I'll show you in the demo about the service link role when it was asking. Whenever you're creating your maze, whenever you're enabling your maze, it will ask you to create your service link role to provide permissions to this maze in order to access the services like Lambda or step function or S3 to perform actions behalf of you. Now, after providing these permissions by using the service linked role, let's see how this maze can, in which process this maze can able to identify the sensitive data and can able to take the actions. Maze will be able to monitor your buckets. What this maze will able to monitor your buckets. First, maze can able to monitor in this S3 bucket. Maze can able to monitor bucket and analyze the objects which are present within your buckets. To detect the sensitive data, it will first monitor our buckets and evaluate them and evaluate those buckets for security access control. For security access control, it also evaluate our buckets. So this service linked role, whatever the service linked role we provided, that gives this maze the permission to create an inventory for all our S3 buckets based on our choice. So for whatever the buckets that we choose for all those S3 buckets, this maze can create an inventory by using the permissions provided by service linked role. Okay. Then by using this inventory, it will also provide you statistical data about your buckets and objects which are present within your S3 buckets. Maze can create a metadata. So by using that, it can even create a metadata about your bucket. So that it can be see if any changes in the future. We can able to see that metadata and we can see the changes that might happen in future. And this metadata includes the following general information. That is, it can contain ARN, creation date, account level, permission settings, as well as shared access and replication settings of object count, and so on. Not only these and much more information will be present in this metadata. So by using this information, Maze can even able to calculate the statistics and provides assignments about your security and privacy of your bucket inventory and can take actions by using any services by using either Lambda or step function, or you can use both as well. This is how the actual internal process happens. So this is how the process will be. So under this, we have monitoring session, right? Yeah. So what kind of buckets this maze will monitor? This maze will monitor unencrypted buckets because from those buckets only users or hackers can able to hack that data, hack that sensitive data. And so what are the publicly accessible buckets? In those buckets only they can able to see the sensitive data, right? So those sensitive data as well, it will monitor, and buckets shared with other accounts. So in that as well, if you have some sensitive data that will be monitored by other, right? Yeah. So in order to monitor them, so this can able to provide you facility. So these type of buckets, this maze can able to monitor these three type of buckets. This maze can able to monitor. This maze will monitor your buckets and creates an inventory and it creates metadata about your buckets. Now, what about metadata refreshment or update? So after how much time it will able to update? So let us see about that. So we have two options for that. This metadata refresh or update. As a part of Mace daily refresh activity, Mace daily refresh cycle, this metadata can be refreshed every day directly through Amazon S3. But through this Amazon S3, it will directly automatically refresh. If you want to manually refresh it, then almost every 5 minutes, we can manually refresh this metadata by refresh button through Maze console. So we have two ways, that is automatically it will refresh by using Maze daily refresh cycle every day through Amazon S3, or else manually if you want to refresh, you have a refresh button present in Maze management console. There you can able to refresh it for every 5 minutes. And this Maze also will update the metadata. So whenever if this Maze detects any unsecure events in CloudTrail, or you can say if anytime, anytime this Maze finds an issue or detects an event in CloudTrail events or event bridge events, that lowers your security. If this maze detects any unsecure event happens in CloudTrail or event bridge, then immediately it will update our metadata and create a findings in S3 bucket, where we can able to open those findings in S3 bucket and we can able to analyze those findings. So whenever it creates a metadata of your buckets, then it also creates your findings. It also creates findings in S3 bucket. Findings in S3 bucket. So what are the destination bucket that you specified? In the destination bucket, it will create the findings. So those findings only we will analyze and perform statistical analysis. Now let's go in deep with these findings. Now types of findings this Maze can able to identify. How many types of bucket findings this Maze can able to identify? So basically this Maze can able to identify 5 types of bucket findings. Those 5 are, so first one is S3 bucket public access disabled. So what are the S3 bucket public access disabled? Those findings it can able to find, or S3 bucket publicly available. Those findings it can able to see, and S3 bucket encryption disabled. So sometimes it might happens, users can even disable the S3 encryption. So during that scenarios, that event will be stored under any one of the event, any one of these, that is either in CloudTrail or Event Bridge. In that case also, it will update your metadata and create your finding. And S3 bucket public. So whenever we create a bucket as public, then also it will create a finding. S3 bucket replicated externally. If we replicate our S3 bucket externally to any others, then also it will create a finding. And finally, it also creates finding whenever we share our S3 bucket externally. So these are the cases where it will create us the findings. Now let's see how much days these findings will be available. These findings will be available up to 90 days. How many days? Up to 90 days. Okay. Each, so let's see what these findings will contain. Each finding has two details. That is their own severity rating and general information. So what is the general information about? It's about affected source, like when Mace finds this issue and how Mace find this issue, and you can able to review and analyze these findings with few options even available from console by Mace security or sec- hub by Mace or security hub or CloudWatch events or programmatically by event bridge through API calls. So basically, Mace finding contain these two information, general information and own severity. This general information indicates source, affected source. That is when this Mace finds and how this Mace finds this issue. Even you can analyze these findings by using services. To review and analyze these findings, we have these services available in AWS. We can even review and find analyze by using Mace, and we can use Security Hub or Amazon CloudWatch or Event Bridge. So by using these services, we can even analyze, review these findings which are generated by using AWS Mace. Now, in order to create these findings, we first need to detect, or this Mace need to discover your sensitive data present in your S3 bucket, right? Yeah. So what how this how this Mace can able to detect the sensitive data present within your bucket. So what we need to do for that, in order to what we need to configure in Mace. So when you are ready to begin cleaning of your S3 bucket, we will need to create a sensitive data discovery job. What is that? We need to create this sensitive data discovery job. So after creating the sensitive data discovery job, we need to run this job. So if we run this job, then this sensitive data discovery job will actually allow you to analyze the objects present in your or the objects stored in your S3 bucket with sensitive content, sensitive information. So by using this sensitive data discovery jobs only, you actually finding your sensitive data present in your bucket or sensitive information or sensitive content present in your S3 bucket. Now let us see what type of sensitive data we can able to identify. That is, we have already discussed it, we can able to identify PII information and PSI. So let us see what type of sensitive data which comes under these two. We can able to identify financial information, that is credit card details and bank account details. Those type of details comes under financial information. Those we can able to identify. And we can even able to identify personal information like name, address and contact data as well. So these names, addresses and contact details comes under personal information. So we can able to identify them as well. And our nationality information like IDs, licenses, driver licenses, and social security and passports, those types of information comes under national information. We can even able to identify them as well. Then we have ability to identify healthcare information, data, and pharmacy information and drug related agencies related to medical information. Whereas we can have even ability to identify credentials and secrets like AWS secret keys and private keys within this sensitive data. So we can assume these all as sensitive data, that is financial information or personal information, national information, medical information or credentials information as sensitive data. We can able to identify these by creating jobs in AWS Mace. Okay. So what does these sensitive data discovery jobs create for me? It will actually create a report and overall analysis of my sensitive data. So it will create me a report and overall analysis of my sensitive data. Let's say I've created a sensitive data discovery job. Now, when can I able to schedule it? We have four options available. That is one time. That means you can schedule it only for one time, and you can schedule it for daily purpose or weekly purpose or monthly purpose as well. So these are the scheduling options that are available for sensitive data discovery jobs in Amazon AWS Macie. In order to identify our sensitive data, so what type of identifiers I have? So while configuring sensitive data discovery job, what identifiers I have to configure to in order to analyze my sensitive data present in S3 bucket. So for that, we have two types, that is managed data identifier and custom data identifier. If you want to create your own custom identifiers, you can create from this option. And if you want to use the existing managed identifiers, you can use this option to create your sensitive data discovery job identifiers. Now let's see and understood about these two, that is managed identifiers and data identifiers in detail by comparison. You can see I have already generated a table. You can see that. So by using that, we can analyze it. Okay. These managed data identifiers are built-in set of parameters and techniques. What these are? These are built-in set of parameters and techniques that detect specific variety of data. These are created and managed by AWS only. We don't need to take care of them. So while the custom identifiers, these are created and managed by you only, not AWS. These are created and managed by you only. Even we use managed identifiers. Mace. Mace do not charge us for the data types. It will not charge us for data types. As a list of new and important data identifiers grows, so based on need, Amazon Mace will automatically include them as well. So the current list of managed identifiers in data protection regulations are, you can take an example like GDPR, PCI, DSS, CCPA, and HIPAA, HIPPA. So those you can take an example of existing data protection regulations. And if you comes to custom data identifiers, so these custom data identifiers are created by you and written in the form of regular expressions. What? You can return them in the form of regular expressions. These regular expressions are regex. Regex defines specific patterns. The regular expressions regex defines specific patterns to match to, and could include things like, you can even include things like employee ID, customer account numbers, or other case specific sensitive data types also you can able to include. You can also set a security level for your custom data types. You can even set your security level for your custom data types. Each custom data type security level is set to medium by default. By default, each data type security level is set to medium by default, but we are having the ability to set the level that can be quite useful to us. So we can change that level as well. We can change that default security level as well. Mace can detect text match either identifiers. Mace detects text that match either of the identifiers. If you use either identifiers, that is this identifier and this identifier, and then this Mace will detect whatever the text that is present or whatever the data that is present that matches to either this identifier or this identifier. If it matches to any one of the identifier, then it can able to detect that. And then you will be notified by the maze. You will be notified by the maze and you will be reported in the same way in same location. So if you use managed identifiers or custom identifiers, maze detection and notifications and reporting will be same in both in the same place. So this is some more in-depth knowledge regarding managed data identifiers and custom data identifiers in order to use them in data identification, that is sensitive data discovery jobs identifiers. So let's say we have created a job by using these two identifiers. Then after it creates findings, right? Yeah. So there are multiple findings we have available. Now, in order to filter them easily, we have these findings will be stored based on two types. These findings are categorized in bucket based on type of finding and type of job found them. So these types and categories makes it easy to filter on what you wish to search for. These allows you to help automatic workflows or even to suppress specific type of finding that you want to know are clear based on the policy needs, right? Yeah. So in this way they are filtered. Now let's see some more detail about what type of objects it can able to monitor. That is encrypted and unencrypted also it can able to monitor. So let's say I have S3 bucket with different modes of encryption. Can this maze can able to read, analyzing and read and analyze my encrypted objects which are present in S3? The answer for this is yes. Maze supports reading and analyzing encryption options, some encrypted objects in S3 as well. But it supports only few type of encryption options. So let's see that as well. It will support S3 server side encryption and it also supports SSE KMS. So these two types it will support. Whereas let us also see the bucket encryption also, the bucket encryptions that this maze do not support. This maze do not support bucket encryption options are SSEC, that is server side encryption with customer provided keys, and client side encryption. So these two types it would not support. So why it does not support these, sir? The reason we need to know, right? Yeah. So in order to decrypt, maze require permissions, right? Yeah. So who provide these permissions? Service linked role. So who is the person will provide you this permission? Service linked role, right? Yeah. So this service linked role can provide you permission, provide this maze permissions to decrypt the bucket objects only when object keys are stored in KMS service. So the keys which are stored in KMS service, then this maze can able to access them within AMS. Let's say a customer stored keys by their own with him. Then this maze can able to get those keys from you? No, right? Yeah. So maze does not get those keys from AWS. So it is not able to decrypt the bucket objects which are encrypted by customer owned keys. You can see that I have also written that point. So this is one more important point. Type of bucket encryption that this maze supports and type of bucket encryptions these that this maze does not support. And reason for this is this. Now let's see what file format does This maze supports for sensitive data discovery. This maze is able to support different file formats and look for managed data and custom data identifiers that you have provided in your sensitive data discovery job. For big data formats, it supports, and Maze can able to handle both our and Parquet files as well. So since it also supports compressed and archive data as well. Maze can search through .gz file, .gzip file, and .tar file and .zip file. Also, it can search through. And for general documents, for general document types, Maze can support for .doc, .docs, and .pdf, .xls, .xlsx. And finally, it also supports pure text format files like Maze can pair through .csvs and .htm, .html, .json, .jsonl, .tsl, .txt, .xml, and other formats depending on the type of binary text format file that you provided. So it supports these type of files as well to search through based on the provided identifiers. Either it may be managed or custom identifiers. We have discussed all about Maze. Let's finish it with charges. How Maze charges us. Maze charges you in two ways. The first is through static protection of your buckets themselves. Static protection of your buckets themselves. And the second one is when you run these sensitive data discovery jobs. So for these two, it will charge you. So for first one, that is static protection of your buckets. So first one, that is for bucket protection. For static bucket protection, for bucket protection evaluation is charged on a per bucket based of 10 cents per S3 bucket per month. So what do you say, sir? So bucket protection evaluation. In order to protect your bucket, while evaluating, it will charge you 10 cents for each bucket per month. So for every month, whatever the bucket that you are protecting for evaluation, for that it will charge you 10 cents. So while choosing the buckets, you need to consider what buckets you want because it charges you only for production evaluation 10 cents and per month. This charge is fairly less and negligible actually. However, depending on how you have set your S3 data, it has a potential to be non-zero cost as well. So even it seems to be negligible. But then where my real price will comes? Then where you will pay really? However, almost certainly one on sensitive data discovery jobs. So these sensitive discovery jobs for the second option, we will pay a more. We will pay mostly more for the sensitive data discovery jobs. Even we can get that cheaper. The more you use, the cheaper you get. The more you use, the cheaper you get. So you can see two charges are there. Those two charges we will discuss. If we start off at 1 cent per GB of data, if you scan first 50,000 gigabytes per month, if you scan first 50,000 gigabytes, then you will be charged 1 cent per GB per month. So up to 50,000 gigabytes, you will be charged as 1 cent per GB per month. Whereas if you scan more than GBs, that is if you scan TBs of data or thousands of GBs of data, once a week, you would be cost up to $4,000 per month. So here you are not charging for particular GB like that. we are charging for whole data. So for that, you will pay only $4,000 per month. Whereas if you scan your data, less data, that is GBs of data, up to first 50,000 GBs per month, you will be charged $1 for each GB. Let's say you scanned TBs of data, then you will be charged only $4,000 per month. So consider how much amount of data that you are scanning. So based on that, your charge will be incurred on your Mace. So this is all about AWS Maze. We have discussed what is the primary need of this maze and how to do this by using what and what can it will able to do, what type of information it can able to detect, and we can even analyze it that type of data as well, and in which process this will detect, and if it detect any threats, then by using what we can able to take actions, and how to monitor the findings. So what are the services we have to monitor the findings, and if any unsecure event happens, then how it will detect and update my metadata and create finding in S3 bucket. In S3 bucket also, how my data will be categorized. So those all things we have discussed, and finally we have also discussed encrypted related data, how it will, which type of encryption options that it will support for me, and which type of file formats that it supports for me, and also the cost we have discussed about this maze. We have even discussed managed identifiers and custom identifiers and job scheduling regarding this maze, and type of sensitive data we have available in the real time. So these all scenarios, these all things we have discussed in this maze. So this is all about AWS maze. I hope you understood this AWS maze service theoretically. Don't worry, I'll show you the lab in the next session, immediate next session, how to create a maze job and how to analyze the data. So those things also I'll tell you in next session, immediate next session lab. So this is all about theory regarding AWS Maze. I hope this video is understanding to you and you found some knowledge information and you found some useful information from this video and you get some knowledge from this video. If you, I feel this video is contentful, this video provides you some knowledge recap or some knowledge to you regarding this AWS service. I hope this video is understanding to you. If you feel this video is contentful, then please like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get the latest updates. Thanks for watching again. See you back in the next video with another interesting topic. Until then, bye bye, guys. Thanks for watching again.